Welcome to Deep Yoga Flow. Thank you for being here. And let's begin. Find yourself a comfortable seated position. You can be on the floor like I am with your legs crossed. I'm seated on a blanket. You might want to be on a pillow. And for many of these seated exercises, you could also be on a chair, because we always begin with a brief meditation and then a warm-up for the spine in all 6 directions of which it is capable. So let's just begin by taking a deep breath in, lifting your arms up overhead, bringing your hands down to the heart in Anjali Mudra, bowing to your heart light, and then just finding a comfortable place to put your hands on your knees, your thighs, or your hip creases. If you have your palms turned up, you can touch your thumb and your index finger in Jnana Mudra, the mudra of inner knowing. Or you can turn your palms over and just sort of have the sensation of grounding yourself a little bit more. In any case, gently close your eyes and just begin to connect with your breath. Feeling the heaviness of your hip bones, your sitting bones, allowing your shoulders to drop naturally below your ears, your elbows to drop beneath your shoulders, and your spine to just rise tall. Feeling a little bit of a lift in your low belly, so that even seated, we have that sensation of rooting down in order to rise up. And as we move more intentionally into our breaths, let's deepen it, bringing it down as if it were coming down to our belly, our rib cage, and then chest, rib cage, belly. Breathing in, belly, rib cage, chest, and breathing out, chest, rib cage, belly. You can see your lungs expanding in all directions, tops, the sides, the backs of the lungs. And then deflating as you exhale. Let's take 2 more of these deep, full, complete breaths. And then gradually allowing your breath to become a little bit more shallow as we move into the Ujjai Breath, the breath of victory, the breath in which we can hear this exhale like the sound of an ocean wave receding, the whisper of the ocean at the back of the throat. We'll try to maintain this nice, smooth, steady breathing. The breath always leads the movement in yoga throughout the rest of the class. You can gently flutter your eyelids open. And let's just begin by warming up the cervical spine with a couple of head rolls in each direction. So drop your chin to the chest. Bring your right ear over to the right shoulder. Lift your head up and around on the inhale. And just gently release it down in the exhale. I'm going to be mirroring you. Inhaling the head up and exhaling it down and around. See if you can find any tightness or sticky spots in the sides of your neck or the tops of your shoulders. And the next time your chin comes to the chest, just begin that little rotation in the opposite direction. Left ear over to left shoulder. Lifting the head up and around, making that little circle with your nose on the inhale. And then just letting your chin drop on the exhale. Breathing in. And breathing out. And then the next time the chin comes to the chest, just allow your head to stay there. And then just begin to give in to the weight of your head. Allow yourself to feel the back lengthening a little bit as you come about halfway over, giving into the weight of the head. Feeling the movement down the back body. And then extending the crown of the head toward me, engaging your belly muscles and lifting yourself back up to vertical. Good. Let's do that one more time. Just dropping the chin, keeping the shoulders down the back to begin with, giving into the weight of the head. As you curl forward, you might be able to go a little more deeply this time. Pay special attention to your low back. And when you get about as far as you think you want to go, just reach the crown of the head toward me. So in other words, straighten your spine, lengthen it into an extension, and then use your core muscles to lift yourself back up. Beautiful. So we're going to move into the shoulders now with a nice little three-part mudra. Bring your hands together, please, in Ujjai Mudra. Touch the third eye with your fingertips, reach your palms up, spread them wide, and bring the hands down the midline of the body to the heart. And you can bow again to your heart light. Touch the third eye again, reach the hands up, spread the fingers wide, and turn the palms away from one another as you make a beautiful circle of warm golden light all around you. Bring your hands back to your heart. Keep the little lift in your low belly as you open your arms out like wings, bringing the shoulder blades together on the back, opening the pectoral muscles, and then coming back to your heart. And let's repeat that. Touching the third eye, reaching the hands up, spreading the fingers wide, bringing them down the midline of your body to your heart, bowing to your heart light. Touching the third eye, reaching the hands up, turning the palms away from one another, making that beautiful circle all around you, sort of a circle of protection. And without sinking into your hips, in other words, keep the belly lifted, bring those arms back, shoulder blades coming together, heart lifting, and come back to neutral. Good. And we're going to go right into a very simple twist. So reach up. Lift your ribs away from the hips, but try to keep your shoulders relaxed. And we're going to rotate in this direction, bringing one hand in the front to the knee or thigh. The other hand can either press into the mat or blanket behind you, but if you can go there, you can bring the back of the hand to your waist. Keep that rear shoulder down your back. We'll just take a few breaths here. Breathing in to lengthen the spine, and breathing out to soften into the twist. Just releasing any tension in the little muscles that connect your rib cage to the spine. Getting a little more flexibility. Breathing in to lift and breathing out to go just a tiny bit further into the twist. Good. And then let's just look behind that back shoulder a little farther. Set your torso and shoulders up where they are. Then look straight ahead at me, the camera, and then over that back other shoulder, getting kind of a double twist here, and then just float back to neutral. Good. Other side. Lift up, ribs away from the hips, shoulders relaxed. Good. Rotating this way. Front hand comes to that front knee or thigh. Back hand presses into the mat or blanket or creeps around your waist. Keep the rear shoulder down your back. And breathe in to extend the spine. And breathe out to soften into the twist. We need to resist the tendency to want to crank ourselves unnaturally around with this hand. Just let the breath soften you into the twist. Good, now look a little farther over that rear shoulder. Set your torso up, and keeping it where it is, just rotate your beautiful face to look straight ahead, and then over the other shoulder. Good. One more breath here, and come on back to neutral. Nice. So let's do some lateral movements. We'll lift the arms up again, ribs away from the hips, shoulders relaxed. And we're going to come over this way, reaching both sides of the ribs and both arms as far as we can. Remember the bottom arm. We don't just want to hinge at the waist. And we need to keep this hip grounded. So we're really moving in two directions. The hip is going down and the upper body is going up and over. Good. And when you're ready, just bring that bottom hand to the mat to brace yourself. Keep this shoulder away from the ear. Reach a little bit farther. Good. And then come on up. Both hands down to the heart. Other side. Lift up. Ribs away from the hips, shoulders relaxed. Both sides of the ribs come over. Opposite hip stays grounded. Bottom arm reaches as well as the top. Opening up the side body. Reach, reach, reach. Keep that hip down. Drop the bottom hand. Shoulder away from the ear. And reach out of that hip. Breathing in and breathing out. Good. Come on back up. We're going to add on to that lateral stretch. Reach up. Come on over. Drop the bottom hand. And this time, let's rotate the chest over that knee and make a beautiful circle with your arms. Come on back up and down to the heart. Let's do that on the other side. Up and over, dropping the hand, rotating the chest, making that circle. Let's do one more, a little bit faster. Up, over, rotate, circle, up and down, up, over, rotate down, making that circle, up and down. Nice. Bring your hands to your knees. Let's come forward from the hip creases. We're going to begin moving into the hips and lower back here. So just begin by rocking from side to side as if the shoulder were moving toward the opposite knee. So we're really trying to move from the hips instead of just from the waist. And as we warm up and soften that tissue and those big hip flexors, you can begin deciding when you want to turn these into torso rolls, which means we pull the belly in and come back and let the belly be soft as we come forward. So again, just getting lots of mobility, kind of decongesting the lower part of the spine, the side body, the belly, releasing some energy there. Good. Nice. And the next time you come forward, stay forward, huh? Bring your hands out in front. Spread your fingers. Start with a straight spine, and then gradually let yourself surrender forward. Maybe your forearms will come down. You can let go of your head. So you may feel this way down into your glutes or not. Good. And then let's just walk our hands over in the direction that that front foot is pointing. Okay? So we'll get a little side stretch here, pulling back on that same hip as the foot that's pointing this way. And you can feel that all the way from the outer hip up to the armpit and maybe out to your fingertips. Just breathe here and then walk back to center. And we're going to come back up and we're going to do those torso rolls in the other direction. So I'm going to go this way this time. Pull that navel center in. Good. You can do these fast or slow, depending upon how juicy you're feeling in your hips and lower back. Good. And the next time you come forward, just switch feet and come on down again. Allowing the back to begin to extend and then to let go. See what's going on in the hip of the leg that's in front now. And when you're ready, walk in the direction with your hands of where that front foot is pointing. Don't come to too big of an angle and just pull back on that same hip. See if you get a little more stretch down the side body here. Good. And then walk over to center. Walk back up. And just take a moment here to feel the length that you've begun creating in the spine and the kind of energy that's moving around in the hips and sacrum. So we need to do a gentle back bend before we come up onto our hands and knees. So we can begin by just bringing our fists to our sacrum in the back, putting the thumb side of the fists there, and then pulling the elbows toward one another, lengthening the spine upward, keeping the shoulders down the back though, even as we pull those scapulae together and the elbows together. And the chest is just going to lift automatically. And then lift the head. And before you let the head come back, remember that we're trying to arch it back, not hinge the head. So you can use those thumbs to press down on the sacrum as you breathe in and breathe out. Be sure to breathe into the chest here, into the throat. Your heart will start beating a little faster, as it always does in a back bend. Very energizing postures, back bends, and wonderful openers for the front body. Good. And then begin to come up to vertical. You can leave your hands behind you, elbows still pulling together. Look straight ahead, and then just bring your hands to your knees and take a moment here again just to become aware of what's happened in the spine during this early part of the class. Good. Now bring your feet out in front of you. I like to shake out my knees, my ankles, because we've been sitting for a while. Good. And then once you've done that, just bring your knees in a little bit. Feet should be a little wider than your hips. And I'm just going to invite you to sit up nice and tall. You can hold on to your shins or your knees. And we'll just do a few cat-cows seated here. So pull the navel center in, reach the tailbone toward me, let the head drop, shoulders can drop. And then take a big breath in and arch in the other direction. So we're flexing forward, flexing, and then arching back as we pull the navel center in on the exhale. Flexing and arching and flexing and arching. Good. And one more time, flexing and arching back. Nice. Then bring your hands outside your hips. And we're just going to do a little bit of windshield wipering, trying to get into the side hips and the IT band here. It's an area that's often tight, lots of thick tissue in the IT band. So just see what you can do to soften that up a little bit, letting the thigh bone roll in the hip socket. We're not torquing our knees. We're getting the thigh to roll around in the hip socket. Again, nice and juicy. Okay, now we're going to come up onto our hands and knees. And I always like to use a blanket under my knees if I'm going to be here for any length of time. So you're welcome to do that too. You'll see that I have 2 blocks here, which I use for some of the hip asanas that we do. But if you don't have them, you can adjust leaning down to the floor. I have a particularly short spine, and that's one of the reasons that I use them. Okay, so we're going to bring the right foot out in front. Good. And just begin rocking your hips back and forth. So what we're doing here is transferring the work from this left hip flexor to the right hamstring. Now, if you're facing the same direction as I am, it's going to be your right hip flexor and your left hamstring. Good. So it's kind of like a little taffy pull, softening up and keeping these muscles flexible. Good. And now this next time when we come back, you can take the blocks with you if you have them. We're going to flex the foot. Good. So pull this flexed leg into the hip socket and just let yourself drift over that leg a little bit or a lot, depending upon how much flexibility you have in your back. Keep the foot really strongly flexed. So you feel that lengthening in the heel, the calf, the back of the knee, and the hamstring. Good. And then we're just going to gently rotate the big toe in and let the hip flare out. Just getting to more of those connections of the big hip flexors to the bottom part of your leg. Just side to side here. Good. Good. Let's come back where we were. Back to the sole of the foot. You might be able to slip that other knee back farther now that this has opened up some. And then we're just going to take that same arm as the back knee, lift ourselves up like this, and do a side stretch. So you can drop more into the hip flexor and open that hip out a little bit. Breathing in, breathing out, trying to keep that arm in line with the ear. Good. Perfect. Let's just come into our first child's pose of the class. So we're going to bring our big toes together, our knees apart, and just slowly let ourselves come down, our hips coming down toward the heels. And remember, if your knees are tight, you can put a block here to sit on. Child's pose is meant to be a resting pose. Your arms can be out in front of you, but let them relax. And also, if your head is not touching the mat or a blanket, you can put a block or a blanket under your forehead so that you can release. Just take a couple of breaths here. Every exhale, perhaps bringing your hips a little bit closer to your heels. Breathing in and breathing out. Good. Now come on back up to tabletop position. And we're just going to bring the other leg out in front. So it's the leg closest to the camera for me. Good. Find vertical first. Maybe you could scoot that knee back a little bit farther if that hip flexor is pretty open in the front. And then just rock the hips back and forth, keeping the sole of the front foot on the ground at first. Good. Lift the chest a little as you come forward, bow a little bit over the leg as you come back. Good. Now the next time that you come back, we're going to flex the foot again strongly. Plug that thigh bone into the hip socket so both hips are facing in the same direction. Slowly let yourself come over that extended leg. And then as you breathe, just very gently coax the big toe over and let the hip flare out. And then pinky toe side comes over this way and the opposite hip can flare out. Feel a nice deep stretch in the back of the leg. And then big toe and pinky toe. Big toe and pinky toe. Come back onto the sole of the foot. And just lift the same arm as that back leg. Try to get the bicep near your ear. And then reach out of that hip laterally. And if you like, you can let that hip move out a little bit, so that you get a really nice deep stretch in two directions. Keep the shoulders down the back. Reach, reach, reach. Good. Bring the arm down. And we're going to come back into child's pose again. And you can go back to the original child's pose, or you can come into embryo pose, where your knees are closer together. Your hands are behind you with the palms facing up. And again, you're just breathing into your hips here. Every exhale, bringing those hips maybe a little bit closer to your heels. And remembering to prop your forehead or your hips if this posture isn't available to you without the props. Breathing in and breathing out. Good, we're going to do one more back bend before we come up to standing. So come on up onto your knees. And this one is a modification of half camel. And what I'd like you to do is to be very honest with yourself about how flexible you feel in your low back and what the wisdom is of going deeper or not so deep into this posture, okay? So what I always say in my classes is that love your body and listen to it. That's the main rule. So never, ever any pain, any sharp pain in your back. But if you feel a little bit of challenge and you know that something is extending, which is what we're looking for, then take the challenge, okay? All right, so let's just do it this way again as we did seated. We're going to bring our thumbs and fists to our sacrum. Pull the elbows together to begin opening up the chest muscles. And then we're going to push down on the sacrum to remind ourselves to extend that lower portion of the spine. And at the same time, we can push the hips forward. So we're pushing down and forward, trying to keep the hips in line with the knees as we gradually open up the front body. Breathing, remember. And gradually, if it feels okay for your neck, letting go of your head as well. Keep pushing down and forward. Keep lifting that chest opening the tissue and the muscles of the front body and breathing into your heart, into your throat. Nice, wonderful opening that you'll feel all the way down into your quadriceps. And then very slowly, heart comes up first, and then the head. Good. And then you can again sit back into child's pose or embryo pose. Resting for a couple of breaths here. Breathing in and breathing out. Good. And then let's just come right up to standing, okay? So we'll take a moment here just to feel that wonderful posture of Tadasana, mountain pose, basic standing posture. So just find yourself on your 2 feet. Look down at them. You want your ankles more or less in line with your hips. Your toes can be a little bit pigeon-toed if you like. Just depends on the shape of your feet. But what I'd like you to do is close your eyes and just allow yourself to feel both sides of the balls of your feet and both sides of your heels pressing into the mat. And then just gradually lift and spread your toes. And then release the toes down softly, so that we're really standing on the foot itself, all 4 corners, rather than gripping with our toes. That's going to secure our posture better. Good. And then what we do is drop the shoulders down the back. In fact, if you want to do a couple of shoulder rolls, that will happen. And just turn your thumbs out about 1 inch. Good. So now you're a mountain, and the mountain's going to start to move. So let's just rise up, swan dive down again from the hip creases. Come halfway up with a flat back. Reach the crown of your head toward me. Release down again. You can soften your knees if you need to. Press through the feet and rise up and bring the hands down to the heart. Let's do that one more time. Rising up, swan dive down from the hip creases. Come halfway up with a flat back, tail reaching back, crown toward me. Release down and rise up, reverse swan dive. Hands down to the heart. So we use that little half sun salutation in my classes to introduce so many of the standing poses, the warrior poses. So I'm going to turn this way to begin. And we're going to start with high lunge, warrior 1, pyramid pose, and twisted triangle, Pavarita Trikonasana. Okay, so just follow along. This is a slow flow class. Slow is safe. So we're going to move from posture to posture, but being very careful about the alignment and the steady flow of your breath and your energy. Okay, so here we go. Rising up, swan dive down, halfway up with a flat back. Release down, you can soften your knees, step back onto the ball of the front foot. And when you find your balance, see if you can come up into high Anjaneyasana here. Arms can be down here in Shavasana position. They can be in cactus, or they can be all the way up. Breathing in and breathing out. Good. Nice. Now we're going to plant the foot and come into warrior 1. Back leg is straight, pressing through the outer edge of it especially. We're pulling back on the back hip so that both hips are facing in the same direction. This hip will come forward a little bit to do that. Good. Hang on here. Again, if this is too much to have the arms overhead, cactus works or Shavasana position. Good. We're going to straighten the front leg and let the arms float down. And then again, pulling back on that back hip, keeping the hips square. We're going to come halfway forward in pyramid pose. Both legs are straight. Reach the crown of the head forward, tailbone back. And then if you have a block, you can grab it. And then those of you who are pretty flexible in the hips can begin to let the torso drop over that leg. But you can also bend that knee if you need to protect your back. And then just play with beginning to straighten it. Deep stretch for that back hamstring. Good. And then we're going to walk back up. And I'm going to invite you to reach that front arm out in front. Do just a little bit of a twist. And come on over. You can place the block here if you have one, or you can just hold on to your leg. Place the back arm on your waist to begin with. And then as the ribs begin to twist toward the back, see if you can lift that back arm. Avrita Trikonasana. Good. Leave the block behind. Walk up that leg and step into Tadasana. Good. So your left side is going to be nice and extended. Let's do the other way, okay? So rising up, swan dive down, halfway up, release down. Back leg is going to stretch back into a lunge. Gradually find your balance and try to rise up. Arms can be low, medium, or high. Pull back on this hip to keep the hips square. Breathing in and breathing out. And then when you're ready, plant that foot. Reestablish the squareness of your hips. This or this, remember. Then straighten that front leg. Bring the hands down. Hands can be on your waist or on your hips. And just come over from that hip crease, pulling this front hip back into half pyramid pose. And then if you have it in the back of the leg, the flexibility you need to come over that leg, do. Otherwise, bend the knee or stay halfway over. Breathing in and breathing out. Maybe gradually straightening the leg. Good. Then as you come up, if you're going to use a block, you can grab it. We're going to reach out with that back hand, the opposite of the front leg. Reach, reach, reach. Come on down again. And begin rotating the chest, maybe lifting that arm. And if that doesn't work for you, you can bring the hand to your waist. Breathing in, breathing out in twisted triangle in the other direction. Good. Release. Leave the block behind. Walk up the leg and step forward into Tadasana, mountain pose. Let's take 2 cleansing breaths. It's a beautiful day here in the studio, but it's warm. So let's get rid of some of that. Deep breath in, sigh it out. Deep breath in, sigh it out. Good. Now we're going to go into a series of side-facing poses, such as Warrior 2, triangle pose. and side angle stretch, Parsvakonasana, with a little bit of twisting added and a little bit of back bending added. So again, slow flow, just follow along as best you can, being careful about alignment and the steady pulse of your energy and your breath, okay? So we'll start with that half sun salutation, rising up. Swan dive down, halfway up with a flat back. Release down. This time we're going to step the front foot back. We're going to pivot and plant it in warrior two position, which I'll explain in a second. Take the front arm up and then face knee with your hips and shoulders. So ultimately our head is going to be looking over that front bent knee. But for the time being, use your eyes to look at your alignment. Is that front foot tracking in that direction, the back foot parallel to the opposite wall, and your body dropping between the two legs. So we're trying to tuck this buttock under and keep this thigh bone open. We don't want it to sickle inward. We want it open from the thigh in the hip socket. As we breathe in and breathe out in this really powerful warrior two posture. One more breath here. Maybe you can go a little deeper and then straighten the leg and come up into Exalted Triangle. We're just looking up at that hand, feeling the energy flow up from the earth, out through our fingertips here. If you want to turn this a little bit more into a side bend, you can do that, reaching back. Try to keep both legs as straight as you can. Come on back up to vertical. We're going to bend this knee as if we were going back in warrior two position, but we're going to go into Parsvakonasana. So it's a side facing pose. Ribs are coming down, elbow comes to your thigh, and then just bring this arm up. Either here, that's actually enough, but if you can, bring it over your ear. Pinky finger coming downward by rotating your wrist. And keeping that shoulder down your back by rotating the bottom ribs forward. Beautiful. Breathe, 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 breathe. Maybe deepen it. Straighten up, pivot that foot toward the front. We're going to take a moment here to take one cleansing breath, deep breath in, sigh it out. And then let's open our arms out. We're going to do a little bit of a challenge for our core muscles, but also another twist. So again, come forward from the hip creases. And if you need to soften your knees to protect your back, you can do that. Good. So your core muscles, your abdomen, your upper core are holding you up. It's a challenge. And then we're just going to rotate the thoracic spine and bring one hand down and look at the other hand. Now we want to press through the opposite foot from the direction that we're moving in order to keep our hips square. We're not twisting our low back. Twist, twist, twist. Good. Come on back. Take a breath here. Other way. Pressing through this foot so that we're only twisting the upper back. It's going to keep our hips in place. Good. Let's do one more this way. Beautiful. And one more this way. Good, nice. Now we can come halfway up again. And we're going to do a little bit of a strengthener and a stretch for the adductor muscles, the inner thigh muscles, which are often weak. So bend one knee And really push through the foot of this outstretched leg. And you're going to feel this all through the inside of the leg, from the thigh all the way down through your calf. And then other side. Press through this foot. Feel the deep stretch. And one more time. Here. And here. And back to center. Bring your hands to your shins again. Soften your knees. Please drop your tailbone and gradually lift yourself up, stacking your vertebrae one at a time. Let's bring our arms out and just move in the opposite direction. Lift your chest. Turn your palms up. Beautiful. There you go. And bring your feet together into Tadasana, mountain pose. Good. So we're going to do the side-facing sequence on the other side. And so that you can still see me, I have to turn this way. So here we go. Rising up. Swan dive down. Halfway up with a flat back. Release down, step that front foot back now. And use that same arm to cartwheel open into warrior two on this side. This thigh is opening out. This heel would bisect the instep of the back foot, which is parallel to that wall. This butt is tucked under. This is opening up. Good. And your face looks here. So remember, this is a pose from archery. It's actually from the Bhagavad Gita. And you can imagine yourself taking an arrow from your quiver back here, taking it out, putting it in your bow, pulling back as hard as you can, and letting that arrow fly at your enemy over there. And of course, in the Bhagavad Gita and in yoga generally, the enemy is within. It's our self-defeating mind. And that's what we work on in this practice, aside from our bodies. Good. Ah, nice. And now lift up into Exalted Triangle. Both legs are straight. You're looking up at your hand. You're rooting down to rise up. Breathing in and breathing out. Nice and deep and full. Feeling that sense of being part of the earth, and yet aspiring to even higher things. Good. Come on back with your arms at shoulder level. Bend that knee again as if you were going to go into warrior two, but we're going to reach out over the thigh. Bring the elbow down. Good. Keep this butt tucked. Keep this open. And then we're going to lift that arm up at least over the shoulder, and if possible, over the ear. Turning the wrist to bring the pinky finger down. Breathing in and breathing out, and rotating those bottom ribs forward. So there's a lot going on in this posture. Mostly that movement of energy from the back heel all the way up the side body and out through the fingertips. Breathing in and breathing out. Nice and deep and full. Good, and when you're ready, straighten the leg. Pivot that front foot toward the front. Here we are. We're not going to do forward folds this time. We're going to bring our feet in a little bit, heels in. And we'll start with goddess pose. So remember, this is not ballet class. You don't have to have a big turnout in your feet. They could be at an angle. Your stance can be wide or closer together, depending on the flexibility of your inner thighs and legs. And we're just going to plie. Elbows in line with the shoulders in essentially cactus with the fingers spread wide. And we're going to bounce a little bit here like the goddess Kali. We can rock from side to side, keeping those knees open. And you do that by squeezing the glutes, breathing in and breathing out. Keep bouncing, but not at the expense of sickling the knees in. Again, squeeze the glutes and keep the knees out as you try to go deeper. Good. Let's rise up. Release the hands down for a moment. Give your thighs a break. And we'll come down one more time into a plie. Your hands can be just on your knees or thighs. Once, twice, 3, deeper, 5, 6, 7. We're going to stay down and we're going to lift our right heel and press into the ball of the foot and slowly bring the heel down. We're strengthening our ankles onto the ball of the other foot. And just a couple more times, side to side here, lifting the heel and slowly bringing it down. Good. And last 2. Good. Straighten the legs. And then let's just do our old friend Starfish Pose. Straight legs, arms making a V, fingers spread wide. We're a little starfish enjoying lying in the sand on this beautiful summer day, cooled by the waters of the Pacific. Oh. And let your arms float down. Bring the feet together into Tadasana. Beautiful. Let's take 2 cleansing breaths. Deep breath in, sigh it out. Deep breath in, sigh it out. Good. Now we're going to come down onto our backs. We'll do a little bit more work for the hips, for the back. And then we'll have a nice Shavasana, corpse pose, the final resting pose of the class. Okay? So some people like to lie on a blanket. So if you like that, you can support your back a little bit with the blanket. And come down to seated first, okay? And I always like to use this as an opportunity to work on our core. So we can go back to that position we had earlier where we're trying to sit up nice and straight with our legs apart, hanging onto our shins or knees. And then just slowly coming down about 1/3 of the way. So you realize that it's your low belly that has to hold that spine up, has to help your back muscles. So once more, 1/3 down and up. Really squeeze those lower belly muscles and the transverse abdominis. Here we go. And now let's go a little farther if you can. Press, press, press that back in. Squeeze to come up. Once more. Keep the back grounded and squeeze to come up. And now we're going to come all the way down, but this time I want you to reach the crown of the head away from you so that we're extending the spine as we come down. Beautiful. And then bring your knees in closer, your heels close to your sitting bones, but not uncomfortably close. And let's just bring the knees into the chest for a moment and rock gently from side to side. Good. Okay. Bring the feet back down. We're going to do a little core strengthener here. It's one of the safest ways to strengthen this whole part of the body without impinging on your back, as long as you do this correctly. So I want you to press the lower part of your sacrum and your lumbar spine. So your waist, press your waist down and your sacrum into the mat strongly. And then just lift your feet off the floor. In other words, lift your knees so that your toes lift off the floor. Just this much for a few breaths is going to work the lower part of the core. Just breathing here. We never stop breathing smoothly. Good, and then just set your toes, the balls of your feet and your heels down. If you like, you can rock a little bit from side to side here. Good. We'll do that again. In our live classes, we do this in 3 parts. So I'll show you. The first part is this. The second part is to lift your upper back off the ground, only your upper back. But you don't have to do this. If it's too much to get the whole abdominal wall working, just stay down here. That's fine. Just keep breathing. Good. And then again, gently your toes, the balls of your feet, your upper back. Good. Nice. You can rock from side to side if you like. And one more time. We're going to lift the knees enough for the feet to drop. They can be relaxed. This is number 1. This is number 2. Number 3 would be to try to straighten your legs. So you're really sitting on your sacrum here and just lifting the upper part of the back still. It's a modified version of boat pose in yoga, Shavasana. But we're trying to protect the back here. Good. Bring your knees into the chest. Rock gently from side to side. Bring your feet back down. Good. And now we're going to do bridge pose. Again, very gently and safely for the back. So bring those heels in as close to your sitting bones as feels comfortable for you. Palms are facing down to begin with. And again, this is a front body opener, a back bend, seated, however, which means we want to extend the spine before we begin arching it, okay? So we're going to press into our feet, into our shoulders, and lift the hips. But we're going to imagine that we're reaching the tailbone toward the knees and the sternum here toward your chin. Keep your chin slightly tucked. Lift, 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 lift. Squeeze your glutes if you want to work a little harder and lift a little higher. And then slowly release from the upper spine down toward your waist. And finally to your sacrum and tailbone. So that's 1. Let's do the second one. Same thing. Press through all 4 corners of the feet. Press through the shoulders. Keep the chin lightly tucked. Press, press, press. Lift, lift, lift. Keeping the hips even. Squeeze your glutes. And if you want even more for your thighs, you can pull your heels toward your shoulders. Lift, lift, lift. Pull those heels. Pull those heels. Feel the contraction in your legs. And slowly place the spine lovingly down, 1 vertebra at a time. You come to your waist and then your sacrum. Good. And let's just do 1 more. And if you can stay up there a little longer, that's great. I'll demonstrate how to clasp your hands underneath your hips and do that. But again, if this is beyond you, just don't do it. Come back down and enjoy a little rest. So here we go. Up with the hips. Reaching the tailbone toward the knees, lift, lift, lift. Squeeze the glutes, pull on those heels toward your shoulders, and then clasp your hands underneath your hips and see if you can come up a little higher without letting the knees flare out. So that means you need to push through your big toes. Lift, lift, lift. One more breath. And slowly release and come down. Nice. Bring your knees into the chest and rock gently from side to side, giving yourself a little hug. Good. Now, I'm going to remove the blanket. And we're going to do one more hip opener here. So seated pigeon. We're going to take that front ankle over and above the left knee. Take the same hand as the bent knee here and push it into your hip crease a little bit, just to get this thigh bone rolling around in there, opened up a little bit, okay? Flex this foot. And then we're going to lift the opposite foot off the ground, hold on behind the thigh bone, and just gently tug that thigh in. You can use the elbow to open up that front hip, the hip that's toward the camera here. Breathing in and breathing out. Again, if you need to tuck your chin a little bit, do that. Sometimes when we lie down, we have a tendency to lift our chin like this. It's not good for the back of your neck. Keep the back of your neck long, which in some cases may mean that your chin is tilted a little bit downward. If you're super Gumby, you can hold on to your shin, pull in a little more. Good, and then release that back foot down. I want you to lift your front leg over your hip. You can hold on to your thigh, you don't have to work hard, and you can soften your knee. We just want a little more work for the ankle by flexing the toes back one more time, then spreading the toe ball mounds and the toes wide, and then pointing. So flex. We call this floint in my classes, widening the toes and the toe ball mounds, and point. Flex, widen, point, flex, widen, point, flex, floint, point, and then just do a few circles with your foot around the ankle from the right to the left. You can do these slow or fast. Just a way of getting to know your ankle, where it's strong, where it might be weak, where your foot feels tight, maybe it feels numb. Just what's going on in your feet that takes such good care of you all day long, huh? So all those bones and muscles working, good. And then bring that foot back down. And we'll do seated pigeon on the other side. So bring the back outer ankle to that front knee, flex this foot, and take the same hand as the leg that's up on the knee and press into your hip crease, trying to open up that opposite thigh, maybe lengthening even the side body there a little bit. Good. And once you have that, lift that foot, grab the back of the thigh of the front leg, and just tug it in a little bit. Breathing in, breathing out. And just perhaps using that opposite elbow to exert a little pressure against the thigh of the hip that we're opening. Just give a little press so you'll feel that outer hip. Our outer hips, and certainly the IT band, tend to be quite ferociously tight. So this is one of several ways we have of opening up and making the hips a little more flexible and strong. Good. If you want to grab your shin, you can do that. Whew. And then bring the foot down. Good. Lift that back leg up over the hip and hold on to it. Again, we're coming away from the work here. Soften your knee if you like. And we're going to flex the foot back, pressing through the heel. Widen the toes and the toe ball mounds, and then point. And 4 more. Flex, floint, point, flex, floint, point, flex, floint, point, flex, widen the toes, and point, and one more, flex, widen the toes, point. And then those ankle circles, maybe one ankle stiffer than the other. Just see what's going on there and maybe what you can do to remedy it if you've got some imbalances that need to be healed. And the other way. Good. Ooh. Okay. Bend that knee. You can bring it into the chest. Bring the other knee up to greet it. And just rock gently from side to side, releasing any tension in that low back. You can make some little circles with your knees. One way and then the other. And then we'll come into a final spinal twist. And before we go into Shavasana, your well-earned rest. So bring the front knee in toward your chest and let the back leg just float down, foot below the hip. Good. So bring that knee into the chest. You can turn the thigh a little bit out toward the shoulder. One final chance, and then turn it in a little bit. So you really feel how the thigh bone sits in the hip socket there. Good. And now hold on to that hand only with that knee rather, only with the back hand, and let your arm float out at shoulder level, the opposite arm. Good. So we're going to try to keep this shoulder, the front shoulder, down on the mat with the palm facing up. And just gently coax that leg over. Trying to think less of twisting in your low back than of creating length from your shoulder to your hip on that front side. And then from the hip down to the knee. And if your neck is okay with it, you can look toward the outstretched arm on the floor. So you get kind of that same double twist that we did at the very beginning of class. Breathing in and breathing out. One more breath here. Come on back to neutral. Bring the back knee up to meet the front. Let the front leg float down. Use both hands to tug that back knee in toward the chest. And then once more, just rotate the thigh out toward the shoulder. And then rotate it inward a little. Yeah, just feel that juiciness that we tried to build. Good. And then holding on to that knee with the front hand, let the back hand drift out at shoulder level, palm facing up and the shoulder down on the mat. And we're just going to slowly nudge, coax that knee over the body as we keep that back shoulder down and rotate in the mid back and upper spine. Good. You don't have to bring that knee all the way down. It's more important that you keep the back shoulder down. Good. And then if it feels fine for your neck, you can look toward the outstretched arm with the palm facing up. Final spinal twist, imagining creating length from that back shoulder down to the waist and from the waist and hip down to the knee. Ooh, nice. One more big breath here and release it. Bring both knees back to center now, and we're going to pull them inward. We can lift our head like a little roly-poly here and just take a big breath in. 2, 3, sigh it out. And let yourself just float down into Shavasana, corpse pose. If you've been doing yoga all along, you're going to know what you like in Shavasana. You might want a rolled blanket under your knees, which helps to release the back. You might want blocks under your thighs and your feet in butterfly position like this. Many people like that. If you have a particularly long neck or a head that tends to pop up, you might want a blanket under your neck so that you keep a nice long back of the head and your head feels supported. In any case, I always suggest that you have your feet wider than your hips, your shoulder blades tucked within you, so your heart, under you, so your heart lifts a little bit, and your palms facing up. So Shavasana may mean that you're a corpse, but it really means that your ego has died. And you are now surrendering to the support beneath you. You're just allowing your thoughts to float around like puffy little clouds on this beautiful summer day. Your eyes are closed. And if you're fortunate, you're going to lose consciousness of your physical body. And you'll feel instead just the vibration of your energy body. But whatever you're feeling, relax any places that feel tense or tight. And allow yourself to rest. And in that rest, your body will take in the benefits of our practice. Ordinarily, I would like you to try to give 7 or 8 or even 10 minutes or even 15 minutes to your Shavasana. So remember that. But today I'm going to show you how we usually come out of it by gradually letting ourselves become aware of the physical body again, maybe by wiggling your fingers and toes. Maybe rocking your head from side to side. Maybe placing one hand on the belly so you can feel your breath. Another on your heart so you can feel your heartbeat. Just very gradually, lovingly allowing yourself to come back from wherever you go in your Shavasana. And then just gradually bringing your knees into the chest. And rolling over onto one side or the other, supporting your head with your hand. And then I usually ask my students to touch the earth with their upper hand, to have a moment of gratitude for the support of Mother Earth. And for our own lives, which have been challenged and maybe changed, but we're still here. And then find your way to a comfortable seated position. You can have your legs straight, or you can sit cross-legged like I prefer. Take a moment to feel yourself rooting down through your hips and sitting bones, rising up through that beautiful spine that is the house of your nervous system. And then let's take a deep breath in together. Exhale down to your heart. Thank you for being here. Namaste.